Good idea. Okay. Hey, good morning. Craig, I know you well. You're part of our team members. Mark, Washington, D.C., wealth manager. Who else? Come on in. We got a front row seat for everybody.
Good morning.
Power of the
Hi, everyone.
webinar. Hey, as you come in, enter the city in the chat box, and that way we know who's in the room, and we can adjust the conversation around that. Yeah, very good. I'm in Bethesda, Maryland, just outside of Washington, D.C., and we're catching some of that storm, so it's been raining for a couple of days. I'm not quite ready to build the ark yet, but maybe in a couple more days. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah, so far it's I'm based in Boston. So far calm up here, but I think it's roaring through Connecticut right now and headed to our neighborhood. So we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, things to look forward to.
Yeah, I'm from Texas, so my question is, what's rain in the summer, right?
Yeah. Specifically, you're in Dallas, right, Steve?
Uh-huh, yep.
Yeah. I figured you had moves since we talk to each other almost every week. Hey, Scott, how you guys doing? Robert, just another minute. We're going to let people come in the room, and then we'll kick things off. Yeah. Let's see, Angela. Some new names, people I look forward to meeting down the road.
At Clearwater, Florida, I wonder if they're getting some of the storm pattern from the Carolinas.
Yep, Dan, we got Dan from Pittsburgh, not too far away. Vienna, Virginia. Christina. Okay, Brian and Steve, if you're ready, I'm ready.
Ready to go?
I'm ready. Let's go.
Want to get into it? Okay, this is I've been looking forward to this for a long time because retaining and growing your client base, keeping the best customers, using that to get more customers like that. It is truly an underutilized capability for many companies that we work with, and probably ourselves for that matter. So my name is Kirk. I'm the CEO of Foresight, CFO. In addition to running Foresight, I teach financial management at Georgetown University to grad students, and I'm the husband to one. I've been married for 23 years now, and the father to two. I got two boys, and both sons are, my youngest son is at West Point, and my oldest son just graduated, so he's on the way this Thursday to Fort Sill, Oklahoma, to for the field artillery to shoot cannons. And the funny thing is that's what he wanted to do.
Every boy's dream.
Yeah, shoot cannons, right? And so I'm really happy to introduce Brian and my co-speaker, Brian, and both Steve Conwell. So Brian, could you introduce yourself for a moment?
Yeah, thank you. Hi, everybody. So my name is Brian Sudoff. I'm CEO and co-founder of Tally Street. As I mentioned, we're based up in Boston, and really, the reason we started Tally Street was because I previously had a small company, a liquor distributorship, and had a really difficult time tracking how my customers continued to engage and buy from me, and how well they paid me, and found that I was not alone in having that problem. So we're trying to automate a lot of it through software for everybody.
Very nice. Welcome to the session here. And Steve?
Yeah, sure. I'm Steve Conwell. I'm the CEO of Final Ascent, and we got our start back when we sold our first company and realized we didn't know anything about getting a business prepared for sale or even the selling process. And we realized there was a gap in the marketplace to help companies get their businesses through that sales process and really just be ready so you can maximize that value at exit. And so we started Final Ascent, and Kirk and I have been working together for, it's been 3 years now. And I'm just really looking forward to chatting with you guys about this topic, because the reality is keeping your customers, growing your cash flow, and improving your net profits is critical to building a sellable business.
Very good. Excellent. So let's jump right into it, Steve.
Yeah. Hey, this is a great statement, right? I mean, increasing customer retention rates by just 5% increases profits by 25 to 95%. And it's just staggering when you look at that, especially when it translates to bottom line value for your business. And why is that? why is it a 5% increase going to do this for you? Well, the reality is retaining your customers has a trickle-down effect in reducing operating costs over time and increasing revenue with that customer. What happens is that the retention of the customer through loyalty programs, through referral programs, it's cheaper from a margin perspective to keep this customer on the bus. The other interesting thing about it is that when you look at segmenting your customers over time, you start to recognize that the most profitable customers stay with you over time. And they recognize that the cost to acquire a new customer is much more expensive, right, than keeping your existing customer base. Now, why does that trickle to increased profits? Well, the reality is that over time, when you keep customers with recurring revenue streams or reoccurring revenue streams, their lifetime value increases significantly, and the value of your business goes up accordingly. And so we're going to cover a few case studies just to translate this to you and just to give it an idea of what this is really about. And here's a significant example. Kirk, you can hit the next slide. Some of you may be familiar with Jason Fried. He's the CEO of Basecamp. But let's go way back in time. So in 2003, he had 37 signals, and they were a website design company. And if you remember, that was the Wild West days, right? Building websites were incredibly complicated. And if you look at a $6,000 site now, it may cost $1.5 million to build something like that back then. And so what happened was these projects were incredibly complicated, and there was multiple team members. And the issue was they did not have a project management system to manage this. As a matter of fact, email was still in its infancy back then, but it was used widely. And so what would happen was, who's supposed to do what when? Who's supposed to communicate to the customer? Where are we? Are we on track? Who, what, why, when, where, right? And so they said, well, let's look at some project management software to bring it in-house. And they couldn't find anything that was simple. So they said, hey, we design websites. Let's build our own software. And they did that. And it took a few months to get the kinks out. And they built something really simple. And what was interesting is they started using it on these website design projects with their customers. And suddenly it was simple. It was highly organized. They were able to communicate. Now, here's the magic idea. The customers started talking to them and saying, hey, how are you managing these projects? What software do you use? And that's when the idea was born. Hey, we might have a product here. And so they spent a bunch of time repackaging it, making it a little simpler. And on February 5th, 2004, they launched Basecamp. Fast forward 10 years, there's 15 million users using Basecamp. And every week, hundreds of thousands more adding to it. Now, why is this all important? One, they simplified their product offering, actually quit doing website design projects anymore. And what's amazing is their revenues, I mean, hundreds of millions of dollars of revenue. And the customers that stay with them for years globally. Now, here's the interesting thing. As of 2019, their company was worth $100 billion in market capitalization. That is staggering. And when you look at their net profits, it's in the hundreds of millions of dollars, actually billions of dollars in net profits. So what did they do? They completely truncated their product offering, and they were able to reach a vast majority of the market that needed to run their projects simply. So they were very niched. And because they were niche, they were able to not only get a staggering number of customers, obviously in the millions, but they were able to keep them for years. And that translated to business value of, I mean, thousands of a percentage more than what they were worth initially. Kirk, you can hit the next slide, please.
Yeah. So yeah, this is where you find out more about who's in the room. So I'm going to post up 3 poll questions, and would love for everybody in the room to answer them. If we can get 60, 70% of respondents, that'd be fantastic. And your responses are completely anonymous. As far as your name being attached to any specific answer, but we'll share the statistical responses, with the audience, so everybody knows who's in the room and what we're trying to accomplish together today. So the 3 questions are: what was your top line revenue in the prior year? So jump in, answer the first question. The second question is, this year with COVID, do you expect your revenue to increase, decrease, or stay about the same? Right? And then the third question is, when do you expect to exit your business? And it'd be great if you can jump in, get a response, and then I'll share that with the room so we know kind of what we're doing. Then likewise, throughout the webinar, if you have questions, your chat box, I'll be monitoring, the flight controls here. So when you have a question in the chat box, I'll bring it to the panelists to get a response. Okay, we're at 50%. If we can get a few more folks here, we can hit 60%. So just a few seconds longer, make your vote count. Yeah, almost, I got 59%. One more vote will get us in there. All right. Practice for election day coming up. There we go. I'm gonna close the poll while we got it.
All right.
Okay, share results. Let's take a look here. So 71% of us are doing 0 to 5 million, and you see the breakdown. Roughly 30% are doing something north of that, 5 to 10, all the way up to 70 million. All right. So that's helpful to know. This year with COVID, 24% expect their revenue to increase, 41% decrease, right? And then about 35 about the same. So 60% are the same or better, which is pretty phenomenal because it tells you who's on webinars, because the economy is contracting, right? So the fact that most of us are holding our own or doing better, and we're going to talk about how if you're decreasing or even if you're doing better, staying the same, how can you take even another step with the right clients and the clients you have. And then it looks like there's about 6 that have they have exit options on their their radar. So that's fantastic. Some would argue build your business with the vision. There's 7 succession options. At some point, you want to transfer your business in a way that continues. So worth thinking about because it'll help you make more money and make the right decisions today. So thank you for responding. Steve, we're going to jump back. Jump back into the case studies here.
No, that's great. Everybody's familiar with home security businesses. As a matter of fact, my wife is wanting us to get Ring on our door because we're the back house in a cul-de-sac and we can see everything, right? Or brings home security as an example. Now, what's interesting about these businesses is they have 2 primary offerings. You're going to hear about installation only. So they're going to go schedule a meeting, schedule a visit, go to your house and install it. The other side is monitoring to keep you safe, right? So if somebody does break in, the alarm may go off, but are they calling the police? Are they calling you to make sure is it a false positive, et cetera? It's a very interesting thing that happens. If a business gets 100% of their revenue from installation, and just to keep it simple, they have $1 million in revenue, they're worth about 75 cents on the dollar. So as you can see here, it's 750,000. Kirk, you can hit the next slide. A curious thing happens when you have a business that gets 100% of the revenue only from installation, monitoring. Their business is worth about 2 cents on the dollar. So $1 million business that does monitoring is worth $2 million. What does that mean? It means that that business is a little more than 2.5 times more valuable than the installation business. Now, why is that? Remember the customer retention? When you look at a installation business, they have to eat what they kill, meaning they have to go and spend a lot of money acquiring new customers. Then they go ahead and install the home security system, and then they go away to find the next sale. For a business that just does installation, not only do they get an initial fee, not installation, but monitoring, not only do they get an initial fee to set everything up, they get recurring revenue over really years, sometimes decades, right? When you're staying with the company that does that. The other interesting thing is they create a very valuable positive cash flow engine because they're getting the money up front, sometimes a year in advance, but oftentimes monthly. And so as much as they grow and as big as they get, from a working capital perspective, it isn't more costly to run that business. Where on the installation side, they've got inventory carrying costs that are expensive, and oftentimes people will pay for it after the installation has occurred. When you think of customer churn and just net revenue retention, the installation customer goes away because they don't have any additional revenue. Where the monitoring business has revenue, it may cost a little bit to acquire them, but after that, they make a staggering amount of money over years and decades. And how does that translate to business value? You can see right here, there's thousands of different ways to create recurring and reoccurring revenue streams, and they translate to business value, which is incredibly important when you want to sell your company, because an acquirer, just in this simple example, which is a trend for multiple industries, will once again pay 2.5 times more than the installation business. And that's food for thought. Kirk, you can go on to the next slide.
Great. Well, hi, everybody. I think now would be a good time to dig into some of those numbers or metrics that Steve just mentioned. And these are really three metrics, three ideas that really every business owner should know, right? So the first one is, how much does it cost to acquire a customer? Very simply, the way most businesses calculate that is, how much did you spend on sales and marketing over some amount of time, and how many customers did you acquire in the same amount of time? So if you spent $100,000 on sales and marketing and you picked up 10 new customers, then your customer acquisition cost is $10,000 each. Next, of course, once you acquire a customer, the longer you can retain them, the more lifetime value you generate from that customer. So lifetime value is really how much revenue, how much sales will you get from a customer during the entire time they are your customer. So to Steve's example, if you're installing home security systems, your lifetime value is going to be the cost of the installation. But if you are installing and maintaining, then the lifetime value is going to be how much you charge for the installation plus the monthly fee or the annual fee you charge for the monitoring service. And you can add up how much has really been collected from a customer over the time, and that's kind of the actual lifetime value. Or to go to the third bullet, if you understand how long you keep your average customer, you can estimate the lifetime value of new customers. So if somebody sticks around for a few years, you can assume maybe that your next customer will also stick around for a few years, and calculate what you expect to collect from each customer. And then you can relate that back to acquisition cost. So if the example I gave, if it costs $10,000 to acquire a customer, but you keep a customer for a long time and their lifetime value is $50,000, $60,000, well, then you've basically made 5 to 6 times your acquisition cost on that customer. And that's a pretty good ratio, a pretty good number, right? It'll vary a little bit by industry, but once you understand how long you retain customers, you can better decide how much you spend acquiring new ones. And you can obviously focus on keeping customers longer and longer, because everything beyond that is essentially gravy. Next slide, please. So customer retention is very, very easy to calculate. Really, all you do is you look at how many customers did you have in a prior period. And depending on your business, that might be the previous quarter, might be the previous year. And then you look at how many of those businesses are still customers in the next period, or still customers today. The range for different industries and retail, consumer businesses can be a little lower, maybe 60%. If you're an attorney, for example, maybe you're up around 80%. So it'll vary a little bit by business, and whatever yours is, you certainly want to track it and keep improving it. And to the point of improving it, what studies have shown over and over again is the best way to retain customers is to just simply give them a good experience. So the better that individual customers will rate their time and their experience with you as one of their suppliers or vendors, the more likely they are to spend more in the near term, and the more likely they are to stay around. And to Steve's earlier point, improving their experience actually ends up saving money rather than costing money, because if they have a better experience, they spend less time requesting customer support. They spend less time requesting refunds, right? You have fewer problems. So money invested in improving experience comes back many times over.
Hey, Brian, I was going to add to that what's interesting is that customers will actually pay a premium to stay with you versus going to a lower cost competitor, just because that longevity, that customer loyalty, and the experience that they have translates to value to you. So that's an interesting thing when you think about business value over time.
Yeah, I mean, great point. The trust, the loyalty developed between between you and your customers, and the friction, right? Change has some expense and takes some effort, and if you're giving them a great experience, why go through the change and the effort? Um, Next slide, please. So another concept Steve mentioned is one called net revenue retention. This is a little more complicated and a little harder to compute than customer retention, but it's essentially the same thing, except it looks at the revenue those customers spend or that you collect rather than just the fact that they existed. So what net revenue retention really tells you is how much did your customers increase their spending over time. So if you have a net revenue retention, unlike customer retention, can be over 100%. So if let's say your average customer spent $10,000 with you last year, and then those same customers spent an average of $11,000 this year, then you have 110% net revenue retention. So it essentially tells you how much revenue you would have if you didn't acquire a single new customer. What would your revenue be as you went from period to period? The great thing about net revenue retention, and also the potential risk, is that the effects are cumulative. So just like interest you earn in the bank, if your customers spend a little more with you each period, it just builds on itself quarter after quarter and year after year. So in this little chart, we basically see if we took a small business, about 3 million in revenue, kind of where a lot of the poll questions fell in that 0 to 5 million range. And if that, oh, sorry, this one's 10 million. But if they increase their net revenue retention from 95% to 105 and nothing else in their business changed, over 5 years, they have 50% more revenue just because of the growth from those existing customers. Next slide, please.
Hey, Brian,
go ahead.
kind of thinking here, why, I mean, it's common, like, most CEOs that we work with, they're really excited about winning, what is the silver bullet to win more new customers? But most of us don't think much about, we know we should, but we don't think much about, keeping the customers we have and growing them and, really doing the care and feeding of the best customers. Do you have any insights on why CEOs may behave that way?
I think, I mean, as a CEO myself, so maybe just speaking of myself rather than try to speak for everybody else, I think it's, basically a new kill, right? I mean, going out and winning a new deal is exciting. It's invigorating. It's, it's kind of why a lot of us started businesses, to go out and win new business and take over the industry, the world, the neighborhood that we're in. So I think it's exciting. I think the point here is that you don't need to give up that excitement to also spend time and effort retaining the customers you have. And the extra profitability and gain you get from keeping customers and growing customers gives you more ammunition to essentially go out and acquire new ones. So if what gets you excited is going out and landing new deals, the best way to fund the salespeople, the best way to fund the marketing, the best way to fund that effort is to keep growing your existing customers and boosting the cash that's coming into your business. And that's actually a great lead into this slide, because once you're looking at customer retention and revenue retention, you can see how it trends over time. And what I see in this slide is that customer retention for this business has been, let's call it pretty constant, right around just under 60%. For their particular industry, for their business, that might be a perfectly fine number. But if you flip the animation there, Kirk, one thing when we look at the net revenue retention, if you can just go, yeah, there you go, thank you. We see this dangerous slide over the previous, say, 6 or 8 months. And in terms of anticipating problems and avoiding surprises, what this shows is that the existing customers from this business started to buy less and less. Now, if that customer is trying to grow their revenue, that means they have to acquire and land more new customers to not only win new deals, but to backfill the revenue they're losing. And eventually what can happen is a business runs out of enough new customers to keep it going. And then you get in a surprise and a painful cash crunch when that revenue and that cash flow starts to dry up. So keeping an eye on these trends and catching them early, 100% critical to avoiding those nasty surprises.
Hey, Brian, I was going to add, I mean, using Tally Street with our customers, when we see situations like this, it's incredible how a basic thing like having a CEO or somebody high up in the company call their top customers just to see how they're doing, what could they do better, what's doing well, can have an immediate impact in the relationship and the revenue. We had one client that literally increased their revenue in 1 month, and we're talking revenue from a trending perspective going forward by 20%, literally because he spent, oh gosh, 10 hours calling like 60 customers. And so this turnaround is staggering. How many times do you talk to your customers personally to make sure you're maintaining that relationship, right? Making sure that they're still loyal to you. Do you have cross-selling programs so that you can increase that net revenue per customer and offer them new things, right? Do you have referral programs? Have you evaluated your sales plans with your team and make sure that you're incenting the right behaviors to mitigate this risk here? So the software, honestly, Brian, I mean, does a great job. When these things are trending horizontally from month to month, as soon as they trend and you see them going horizontal, there's a problem. And you need to go ahead and talk to the team and rectify that, because that downward spiral is staggering when it comes to the revenue for the company, the health of the company, and the bottom line profits. So remember that 5% translates to 25 to 95% of net profits. Think of the opposite effect. How much are your net profits being impacted in this scenario when you went from 90% to 70%? It's staggering.
Yeah.
Yep, absolutely. And you know, most of these, you know, as business owners, we love these charts that go up and to the right. So keep it looking up and to the right. And being in Boston, there's a lot of sailing around here, and your existing customers and the money they spend with you is really the ballast. I mean, it helps steady you and help fund your growth and attacking new business. So absolutely critical. And not only will the customers appreciate that extra attention that you give them when you do call, as Steve, as you just suggested, but your opportunity to learn from their experience and then better improve how you offer your product or service, maybe a new feature that you need, right, is just invaluable, makes a huge competitive difference.
Just kind of highlight, I mean, Steve, you're really on a point. I mean, the analysis really helps you know when to lean in and when to go deeper, and equally importantly, when to pick up the phone or go, you know, back in the old days, way back in February, go visit your customers, right? And then you know, listen to what they have to say, and then you're putting the, you know, that intelligence, that insight about what's going on with your customers with the number story, and that's when you're going to have those aha moments. You know, what can you do to add those wow factors to your client's experience? You know, so you got both of these mechanisms working together. So really good.
Yeah, thank you. And actually, the next slide will help as you start to talk to your customers, continue to engage them. That can really be informed by first spending some time. You don't have to spend much time because software will do this automatically for you, but to spend some time grouping your customers into what we call segments. So who are your champions? You know, those customers who they buy from you frequently, they spend a lot, they pay well. Or all the way down towards the bottom, you know, who are the customers who maybe they used to be really good customers, but they haven't bought from you in a while, and you're at risk of losing them. So being able to segment all of your customers into these groups can then help you organize your efforts and your team's efforts on who you reach out to, what questions you have, you know, what you want to learn from them to make sure that you can retain them and keep growing the sales from those customers, and learn what, if any, changes you need to make in your business at the same time. And again, today through software, we, for example, and you could do the work in Excel if you wanted to spend the hours doing it, you can go in and do this kind of analysis and use that to inform your, you know, your sales team and your support teams and yourself to better follow up with those customers.
Yeah. Hey, Brian, I have a question from Paul, and he's here's the question. Eventually, knowing what, you know, both you and Steve think about this. So from Paul's question, he said, sometimes, let me see if I get the phrasing right. How a top management calls customers without ticking off. I'm going to paraphrase this. It sounds like Paul's asking about when top management calls customers directly, it may tick off the sales team. Do they feel the sales team might feel like you're checking up on them? Have you, this is beyond the numbers story. Have you seen any of that where there's some friction like that going on in the business?
Ideally, so in my experience, and what I'd recommend is, most customers getting a call from the CEO, the president, the owner is kind of a complimentary thing, right? I mean, they really enjoy that attention and that focus. And your sales team, one thing they can do is use that as a carrot, right? So they can reach out to their customer instead of you as the owner calling them, kind of call it behind their back, right? They can reach out to their customer and say, hey, my boss, right, would love to talk to you. You've been a great customer, or, we'd really love to get some feedback, and can I help set that up? And that way the salesperson doesn't feel like somebody's kind of taken, gone around them to talk to the customer. The customer appreciates the salesperson looking out for them and connecting to the owner. And then you get the conversation you want queued up, teed up nicely for you. So, there are ways to turn it into a kind of a win-win-win for everybody, and everybody comes out of it feeling, that they got the intention and somebody did them a favor. I don't know, Steve, do you have another comment?
Yeah, I would agree with Brian 100%. I mean, if you think about your corporate culture, if you've got management and the team members and it's adversarial, this can blow up in your face, right? But when we're all working together to satisfy that customer, to provide that best experience for them, this can be a tremendous win-win. The other thing is that the account manager gets to be in front of a top executive in the company and gets to have that experience of coordinating that and continuing to further their relationship with them. So remember, this could augment cross-selling opportunities, referrals. When CEO is talking to CEO, hey, you need to talk to my friend over here who's got this business. You guys have been fantastic. And so there's opportunities to actually grow your sales that way as well. So we're not just talking about the existing customer, but new customers that can come in the pipe that way. Yeah, absolutely. And when you look at this list here and how this is segmented, it's always interesting analysis-wise to look at it in terms of the gross margins per customer. Who are our most profitable customers, right? Typically, your 20% of your customers bring in 80% of the revenue, but that 80% may not necessarily be profitable revenue, right? That will translate to strong net profits on the bottom line. So you can use this to determine, hey, my champions, my good and promising ones are the most profitable companies that I have. And when you look down at the hibernating, possible mismatch, and late payer, they're probably mostly your problem children. And also you may be losing money satisfying them. So sometimes it's good to just, cut the cord and let them go to your competition, right? And then you can focus a lot more energy and working capital on the companies that love you and want to sing your praises.
Yeah, no, great point to look at profit margins. And we see in helping companies kind of go through their segments, understand them. It's certainly not uncommon to see somebody in that late payer segment who should be a champion. Mm-hmm. They're just not paying well. And the opportunity to talk to them and hopefully address it and turn them into a champion is, I talk about a nice boost to cash flow, right? Kind of everybody's happier when things work smoothly, and you've retained a great customer and boosted how well you collect from them.
Yeah. Hey, Brian, just to add to the conversation here, that to Paul's comment, the first time senior management says, hey, we want to step in and really connect with our clients more, if that's something new in the organization, I can see very easily how it would be perceived by the sales folks that, hey, you're checking up on me, in some way it's threatening. So maybe one approach to do this is with Tally Street's analysis is, senior management can position this the way that they intend it. Hey, we got more insights than we had before, and at both levels in the organization, we want to connect with the client so that we're doing better by our clients, and we're using both the intel that the sales folks have as well as senior management, and that's just that much more capability to really do well by that client and make sure that client is more likely to be a champion versus something else. So so Paul, using the reports could could give management a way to really open things up where this is not threatening. This is how we build a better business. So
absolutely. And if these kind of results are also shared with the sales team, I mean, it's certainly in that salesperson's interest for that customer to spend more money. So, anything that the company can do together to improve the relationship with that customer and boost their spending, should be appreciated by the sales rep for that particular customer.
Yeah, I'd be interested in the chat box for those in the audience. I mean, would this be useful to you? Yes, no, any thoughts you have, to really see your customers segmented in this way. So, what are the best practice actions you can take for each segment? And Susanna knows that, clients know that whether, when management or the sales folks are calling, your client knows if you're genuine, if you really care or not. So I think that's probably an important part of it when you're using this intelligence. Do it from a sincere place.
Absolutely.
It's like an early warning system too, Kirk, right? If you knew this information right here, there's different strategies for each of these to strengthen a relationship, right? And I love what Brian said. I mean, you could have a possible mismatch that really isn't. They're just paying much later. And so if we can change those payment terms and kind of adjust that, really work as a win-win together and collectively how to improve the relationship, then ultimately they're going to love you guys and they're going to be loyal to you. The other thing is that, salesmen, in my experience in building incentive comp plans, they go where the money is. And so Paul's question, I would definitely involve the sales team. And what questions should we ask and get them to feel like they're really behind it? And they've developed that with the CEO and with the management team so that it's a win-win for everybody. And if they see that their commissions are going up by 20, 30% just off an exercise like this, they will 100% want to have strong customer satisfaction processes in place just because they see their pocketbook go up.
Yeah, and that's actually a good first step. And before even talking to a client or a customer, review the segmentation and the customers who fall into each one with your sales team and start to look for patterns. So are there some commonalities between your champions or your mismatches? Were there things that, now that you go back and look, the team better knows, okay, let's not spend time trying to chase this particular type of customer because they're very frequently mismatches. They buy from us once and they go away. So having that internal conversation is a great way to again, discover and understand those patterns and help guide the sales team to kind of, as Steve said, go, find out where the better money is and spend their efforts much more cost effectively getting future good customers and champions. Anything else here? Should we move on to the next slide?
It's pretty good. Let's jump in here.
All right. So I mentioned on the previous slide that thankfully, because software can automate a lot of this, these numbers aren't hard to get anymore. So one thing we wanted to offer everybody on the webinar is that if you use QuickBooks Xero or Sage Intacct, you're welcome to try Tally Street. You'll get the results we reviewed and a lot more just a few minutes later. It doesn't take very long at all. There's no technical expertise required just to connect Tally Street as an app to your QuickBooks Xero or Sage Intacct accounting system. And you'll get the customer retention numbers that you have today and how they've trended over time just a few minutes later. And with that also, Kirk and Steve will spend a little time with you to help you better understand, interpret the results, maybe start thinking about some things that you could change and do a little differently to improve your business.
Oh. This falls in the category of why would you not do this, right? You get analysis, and you get that first shot to see what kind of either weekly or monthly intel analysis that you can have, and teach your manager, sales and otherwise, every week take action based on where there's kinks in the holes. I mean, why would you not do this? I mean, Steve, Can you think of a reason not to do this?
Because one of the things Brian hasn't said, this goes to the actual database level of these applications. So from an accounting perspective, they have every single transaction that's happened and the analysis that goes with it. And so when we talk about a deep dive, I mean, they're able to trench literally to the record going back several years. And so you're going to get insight and information that you yourself running, let's say, every QuickBook report that you can, customizing it all, you can't get this data. I know CFOs that are on the call, CEOs would like this analysis from their team, would love to see what you can do with this very simply just by reviewing the reports, and then the gigantic Excel spreadsheet that you're going to get with multiple workbooks or worksheets within it that gives you analysis that you've never seen before with your business. It's really fantastic. And we use it with all our clients.
Yeah. Go ahead, Kirk.
But in the old days, before Tally Street, before Brian, we hired financial analysts to do this kind of work, and they would spend hours, if not every week, every month, recreating the same analysis so that you have something to act on. With a person manually creating the numbers, there's a better chance that sometimes the numbers will not be accurate, and most of the time you're not going to get that weekly analysis that you can act on weekly versus monthly, right? After a month is over, 8% of the year is gone. So it's too long to wait, and especially in this kind of environment where we're pivoting, maybe not by the minute, but we're pivoting fast, a lot of us. Right. So Brian, I didn't mean to cut you off. Do you have something you want to add?
No, I'm glad you mentioned analysts, because we often describe what we've built and what we're continuing to build as a virtual analyst. So it's doing in software what you might have previously hired a person to do, and doing it in that very repeatable every week, every month kind of regular interval, without, kind of the potential problems of managing spreadsheets and a bad cut and paste, et cetera, right? So it's just a fully automated, consistent way to get information and results so that we can all make better decisions about how to manage our business and how to engage our customers, and kind of the point of this revenue, how to keep them and to keep growing the sales from those customers.
Yeah, I mean, definitely take that first shot. If it doesn't work for you, nothing lost, right? But it may be there's something you're missing out on if you don't do that.
It's just as easy to disconnect as it is to get started. So absolutely.
Yeah. Fantastic. So Steve and I are going to bring things home now. This is the final stretch to really give you the visual, the feeling of what it's like to do this kind of work. So I'm going to share an actual client experience that started about 2.5 years ago with a B2B product distribution company, and this is the condition going in. And it was a solid, pretty decent sized company, large, based on the results of the poll. And top line's growing year over year, 10 to 15%, which is very healthy. Most companies can't maintain a 20% year over year growth when they hit a certain size. But the funny thing is, if you run the trend lines out, you get the visual. Top line's growing, but the bottom line was shrinking all the way down to 2%. And the company's big enough where you can't quite get your hands around it like you used to. So there's revenue, there's profit that's leaking out, but can't quite put your finger on what's going on. And in this company, you can imagine with profits, getting really narrowed to the 2%, literally 1.5 to 2% range. And they were sweating payroll. I mean, cash day sales outstanding was about 86 days on average to get money in from their clients. So, the more they succeeded, the more stress that the owners could literally feel on their shoulders. We're succeeding, right? This is the way it's supposed to be, and getting crushed, by the financial dynamics of the business. So what we did with them is, we did the analysis. We worked on, on a client level, who's paying, where's the money, right? And that gave us specific actions. Day sales outstanding, specific actions. We had the data to go have a conversation with that client. A candid conversation. We're all in business. We understand what happens if we're not getting paid. And the second thing is, let's run the accounting operation, the financials, something that Foresight does in addition to growth CFO work, so that we know all the direct costs associated with that client are recorded with a profit and loss statement with that client. And you can see, oh my God, back to that 80-20 that Steve was talking about, we're actually doing work and we're not even covering our direct costs. I mean, we are losing money. And so again, that's the information you need to have a conversation with those clients. What does work, right? And what path to going from unhealthy to healthy makes sense. Open conversation, pretty easy to do. Ultimately, if the customer, if you can't service them well and do, impact them the way they want, in a way where you can still eat, prune them, phase them out in a way that's decent for all parties involved. But don't keep going down a road that's where you're literally bleeding out, and feel like you have to keep doing that. But open conversations. So this type of analysis really helped us get that part done. And then the next part was, sales. Those segments that Brian showed us, who are the champions? What do they look like? Are there certain characteristics in common? Because once you start defining your marketplace more narrow, as these are the people we can really do great work for, then it makes it so much easier to do lead generation, right? Let's do lead generation based on what those folks care about, based on where they're at. And then likewise, salespeople, right? What conversation is really beneficial to that audience, right? So you get more targeted, you get clearer. So that caused the sales. Now we're growing the top line and the bottom line because we did the pruning, right, and making sure cash is being collected. The fourth thing, some of the things that Steve alluded to in his case study. I mean, when you know your lifetime value of your better clients, then you can start making really informed decisions about what do we do to keep those clients. What can we do to give them the wow factor? Whatever customer retention, whatever goes into that, and then on the cash side, what can we do to bill faster? What can we do to collect faster? You get very intentional, right? Practical things that you can do, and that way you're increasing that revenue retention. Remember the graph that Brian walked us through. The outcome, to bring it home, the outcome was that the company continues to grow the top line at about 15 to 17% year over year because their marketing dollars are more efficient. It's targeted versus that carpet bombing. Profit went from 2% to they're hitting 13%. Even with COVID, they got more profitability because they got customers that they can actually deliver services to with the wow factor, and that the customers have the ability to pay, which is pretty important. And day sales outstanding is going, we're about 35, 37 days, so that it took the pressure off cash flow because you don't need as much working capital, which translates right into Steve's graph of valuation. The less cash you need in your business, the more valuable your business is. The more profitable your business is, the more valuable it is again, right? And so, the math really works when you know what lever to push. Okay, Steve, I'm gonna keep going to get us there. So just to give you highlights of what Foresight does, I mean, Brian is Tally Street. They have the financial analyst as a financial tech software that plugs into your accounting system. What we do is we help CEOs of private companies win more customers and keep more customers, through growth CFO and accounting work, so the numbers are working for you again. And definitely, contact me if you want to schedule a 30-minute consultation. And I actually work really closely with Steve. Steve is on that succession side. And so, if you're getting ready to exit, he's the man to contact. But I'll let you talk about what you do.
Yeah, absolutely. If you're looking to exit, let's say within the next 2 years or so, there's a lot of things that have to happen between putting like an owner CEO hat on and actually getting your company positioned to sale. And that's where we come in, and we help organizations get that value maximization that they would like to see when they exit, and then spending a lot of time with the owners to get personally ready for that transition, because life when you exit is suddenly different when you don't have the entrepreneurial hat that you've worn and you've sold your baby to somebody else. And so, we'd love the opportunity to visit with you, all of us here, and just sit down and have a conversation and just see where things are at. Next slide, please. Just, email to schedule me. We can sit down and have a free 30-minute consultation or more just to learn more about you. Kirk and I get on a call and just and talk and help you make a decision for your business about what's the right direction to go. The last thing that we want to do is just come right out and offer our services. We really want you to feel comfortable that you're making the best decision, and that ultimately, whether you are going to exit or you want to continuing to grow, that's the right thing, and we're here to support that for you. Absolutely.
Yeah, and we're going to email for everyone who participated. We'll email a link to download this slide deck so you can go over it again. Definitely get your tally street analysis, do that, and then based on where you're at with your growth curve, either contact Steve if you're getting ready to go to exit, or contact me if you're early on in your net growth mode. You want to accelerate the top line and the bottom line. But very much appreciate you all being here. This is an underserved resource. I mean, do more with the people who already love you, the clients who already love you, and have the insights that complement your discussions with your clients. So, Brian, Steve, thank you for hopping onto the webinar.
Thanks,
thank you. Yeah, this has been great.
Okay. All right, wrap it up here. All right, and definitely email the folks in the room. Definitely email us if you got questions you want to unpack for your own business. Talk with you soon.